Welcome to Dynamo's Dozen, the podcast that I bring you each and every single week, where I talk about whatever may be on my mind, from pro wrestling, sports, entertainment, music, movies, muesli, fresh socks and jocks, and everything in between. Never forgetting the talc. And you are watching the debut of a debut of a re-debut of a re-debut on, on Dynamo's Dozen's first YouTube channel. That's correct. You may have remembered all of our shows from the Dynamo Podcast Network. They are all still there on YouTube. However, moving forward, all Dynamo's Dozen shows will be on this channel. And we will be bringing over a lot of the old shows as well for all you guys and gals that haven't seen them before. We'll be putting retro throwback shows up as well throughout the year, going through the back catalogue. Guys like Harley Race, guys like Phil Anselmo, guys like Bobby Fulton, and so many more.
Ricky Morton, Nikita Koloff.
Oh,
I'm here for the old school, baby.
Here for the old school. So please do support the channel by liking and subscribing. Hit the bell notification for updates. We are available already on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you may listen to your audio, we are there. And all of the old school episodes that we are talking about are all there for you to listen to right now. Thank you for your support throughout the whole of last year, for myself and for my guest today. The DPN, it's not a failure. We just decided that we were going to go a different route and have our channels individually, so it'll be easier for you, the listeners, to kind of catch up on what you like and stick with what you actually like. So a lot of people have asked me, Niall, was there a fallout? What happened with the DPN? Did it crumble? Who fucked over who? I think it's a great opportunity for us to set the record straight right now, because you're here, and I'm going to call you out. Niall, why did no?
I stood behind the fence. I pulled the clip out of that grenade and I threw it, and it just went. And that's what
Niall
happened.
was the gunman on the grassy knoll. He was the smoking gun, except I dodged the bullet, and I asked him back here anyway to ask him why. No.
You did well to dodge that bullet 13 times, just saying.
I know, yeah. Well, listen, the dozen, if you'd have got me on the 12th time, then it would have been probably fatal.
Right in the ankle. Right in the ankle.
Oh, the worst place. I'd rather be shot in the head.
Would you know?
No. So, yeah, we'll just give people a little bit of a context. Obviously, you are running the upper tier, which a lot of our wrestling fans that are watching this show now, and a lot of our fans that just like listening to what I do in terms of, whoever I might interview or whatever I might talk about, are very, very familiar with you and would have had a big crossover with the football. So you have your own YouTube channel now, the Upper Tier, which of course yours truly will be a part of going forward. I've already been on an episode there recently, enough with the Liverpool-Chelsea game. So first and foremost, tell people where they can find you, and then we can put a bit of context on why we decided to kind of make them individual.
Yeah, well, we're out there. It's on YouTube, the Upper Tier. You'll also find us. We're on Facebook and Instagram. If you want to contact us, it's the Upper Tier Podcast at gmail.com. Same on TikTok, the Upper Tier Podcast. We're also on Spotify, so you'll get us out there on Anchor, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, wherever you pick up audio version show, we are there as well. Am I missing anything? I don't think I am. I think that's all of them. So it's everything football, anything you can think of. Most of the shows we cover, from previews, reviews, match reactions, player ratings, standalone shows, exclusive interviews with League of Ireland legends, and throwback series as well, where we look at Premier League legends as well. We did one with yourself and Alex that went up there last week again on Didier Drogba, which was an absolute belter of an episode. We're also going to be releasing loads of stuff, which I call, being a wrestling fan, I call it From the Vault. And that's how I released them and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. So we'll be releasing all those old quality shows from the vault that were originally on the DPN as well. We have all them still. They're all there. And for a lot of our new viewers or any of our new subscribers, they will be able to experience them. Like yourself, what I would say is any viewers who haven't taken a look back at what catalog this man has created over the last 3 years, take a deep breath because you're in for a serious ride. He's had some exceptional guests with some brilliant interviews, dating back over the last 2 to 3 years, I'd say, and it's going to be an absolute belter.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for putting me over.
Not about it.
No, and like I say, we won't spend too much time on it. There is the story is that there is no story. We just decided that we would make individual channels for each of the shows that were on the Dynamo Podcast Network, just purely for a convenience aspect for you, the listener, because you can literally concentrate on what you like. It'll be easier for us to monitor and let's be real, hopefully monetize our own shows as well. We're not going to sit here and lie and try and get them going forward, but without a shadow of a doubt, there's no fallout or anything like that. It is all, we are all still pretty much part of the team. We're just going to be running these shows individually now, and both on audio and on YouTube, so you can see our beautiful faces too. If you don't like our beautiful faces, that's fine. You can just listen to our really deep voices on audio.
It's like an Olympic relay team. They all compete individually, and then they come together to win that gold as an Olympic team, as a relay team.
Part of the bigger plan. So today we are going to talk about pro wrestling, because obviously Dynamo Dozen is primarily and fundamentally a pro wrestling show, and I haven't really brought my thoughts and opinions on a lot of recent activity over the last couple of weeks, because I did have COVID. I have recovered from COVID now, so I'm back, and I've been catching up on the goings on, and what a time to catch up on the goings on, because we have the Royal Rumble this month. Always pretty much, I would dare say, along with Mania, my favorite month for pay-per-view. Niall, I'm pretty sure you're the same.
It's the pay-per-view that has kept its kind of mystique, hasn't it? Like we talk about the big four. Survivor Series has become one of the other 10 or whatever it is, or 8 or whatever it is. SummerSlam, it's a big event. It's the biggest party of the summer, and they make a big deal of it, and we love it. But the Royal Rumble is really the pay-per-view that is the road to WrestleMania, and it has kept that way. That's one of the things I like about WWE. They have kept the Royal Rumble kind of intact as a great show.
Yeah, and it's the one show as well where you will get the casual fan in every year, because the casual fan now doesn't really want to sit watching a 7-hour pay-per-view or a pay-per-view over 2 nights with Mania. They'll probably watch a little bit of it, but I'd love to see the numbers. If Mania was on a television network and not on pay-per-view, I would say you would look at the amount. If you were to look at the stats, I'd say the amount of people jumping in and out of the show would be ridiculous. You know what I mean? Whereas, you're getting a 3-hour pay-per-view with the Rumble. There's always a good match in there as well, a good match or two in there that kind of whets the appetite for the main event. And the fact that you have 2 now, obviously with the women and the men, makes it even better. So that kind of works in WWE's favor. We'll stay on Royal Rumble then, Noel. You've done a bit of the digging into the Royal Rumble. I myself am only catching up at the moment, so I might let you take the lead on the Rumble here now and where we're going. I know obviously our personal favorite, Brock Lesnar, has the belt again. Possibly a man that's in the conversation now as one of the GOATs for sure, in my opinion. I mean, the guy is out of this world. His selling, his believability, his look now, he's changed his look with the whole kind of, I think it's cool, the little mohawk, up at like the old McGregor hairdo he has, the big beard.
It's fuckery.
Oh, it's fuckery without a shadow of a doubt. And now he's been
reunited.
Yeah, man, it's unbelievable. Like, he just looks like he's come off the farm up in Minnesota. Well, he's in Canada now, isn't he? But man, he has been phenomenal since he's come back, hasn't he? I mean, he really is ratings. I mean, we thought Reigns was ratings, and he is, but now you've got 2, and obviously him coming, beating Big E for the title. I mean, look, it had to be done. Unfortunately,
we called it.
We did.
We called it a long time ago.
We did call it. That's true. So him and Heyman have been reunited, which I think is fantastic. I think Heyman is probably the best promo in the business right now, outside of maybe CM Punk and MJF. They're probably, all three of them are probably up there in their own little stratosphere at the moment. But Heyman getting fired by Roman, I mean, that was absolute gold, wasn't it? I mean, he's such a good actor.
The interview he did with the tears was just exceptional.
But even like, as he's like, my tribal king, like, you actually felt sorry for him. And Heyman's a guy that, like, you should never feel sorry for, but the ability he had as an actor to bring you in and feel that sympathy, and in the process making Reigns out to be even a bigger dickhead, was just great piece of business, I thought.
I thought the interview he did, the sit down interview where he did, and he was in tears and all. And he was reflecting on his life and wrestling, and talking about how, well, maybe it's time Paul Heyman hung it up. Maybe it's time Paul Heyman walked away from the business, and all this kind of stuff. And the tears are running down his face and all. He's incredible, really. I don't know what it is about him. Some people just come along and get the business. And he gets the business. And I just think he's exceptional. And I think the one thing I've noticed as well, and I don't know whether you've noticed with Brock since he came back, he looks like he's in love with wrestling again.
Yes.
He really looks like he's enjoying it.
Yeah, 100%. That's one thing I got. Like, I can always tell when someone loves it or when they're just being a part of
when they're on.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? There's little things that you can see when people believe it and when they don't. Like, I look at the Miz now, and I kind of think Miz is just going through the motions and doing Miz things, and that's no disrespect to him, but, like, you know what I mean? There's never anything really exciting that they put forth for him again, and he obviously has his own show and all that now. But you look at guys like Edge, he loves it. You know, he loves it because he knows that this is his chance again. It's the same with Daniel Bryan. It's the same with CM.
Well, these guys thought they'd never get the chance again. They
Brian Danielson. Sorry, Brian Danielson. I've been called out by fucking Finn Martin a million times on saying that.
That's
I'm sorry. Brian Danielson, CM Punk. You know, you can see these guys love it again, and Brock fits in that narrative too. I think, I suppose the only critical point of view that I might have was, did they pull the trigger too soon with Paul Heyman coming back to Brock, and maybe should have left it as a surprise for pay-per-view, or because maybe they are feeling the pressure with the ratings now and maybe saying, right, we need this for Raw. You know, that's probably. I wonder,
is there a swerve coming?
Oh, I think so. I do think so. Because
I was getting, when I seen the two boys in the ring last week face to face about the two belts, I was getting kind of excited. And I thought this might be something that culminates at a Mania.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be fitting at a Mania when we know all the backstory with Brock and how, you know, at a couple of Manias, he's just a total dick, and he doesn't even want to be there, and all that kind of stuff, the stuff with Rollins and all. But I just wonder, wouldn't it be fitting at a Mania if we got Brock versus Roman, and Heyman turned on Brock and Roman won the two belts to unify them and become the undisputed champion or something like that?
Imagine.
Just imagine that the wave of that would be unbelievable. But I have to say, over the last, I'd say 4 to 6 weeks, and I know most wrestling fans in the build up to Royal Rumble get quite excited, because I know WWE does turn it up a notch and definitely improves what they're doing, and they're laying down the storylines all the way up running to Mania, which is
it's
really,
the start
really
of their season, isn't it? Basically, you know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah. Basically the start of their season, and I think it's a really exciting time. And you mentioned Miz there. I love that Miz and Edge stuff. I just think it's electric. I just think both of them together is absolute money. Really, really enjoying it. But yeah, Royal Rumble, lots of interesting information coming out about it. One is that apparently one of the big changes coming this year apparently is that they're going to let in competitors from other wrestling organizations.
Yes.
Now,
yes. This is the big story.
I don't. This has come from out of nowhere. This is left field stuff, because this would never have ever happened. But I wonder, was that the plan? I wonder, is the plan behind all this releases and all this kind of stuff? Is it that WWE wants to take that consistent cost off their books and maybe bring in guys as they need? Nearly like, you know, the way the old booking office and the NWA and the territory system used to work. Yes. Okay, we want Ric Flair down in Texas, so we'll bring him down to Texas, and then the council approves it and all that kind of thing back in the day. I wonder if WWE is going the same way, nearly like a booking office, where they're going to go, okay, well, maybe we want this guy, and we want this guy, and we want this guy, and we're going to cherry pick who we want, and we're going to use them. We're going to pay them well. And then when they've done their thing, they've done their thing, and they move off, and then we start building again. And if this is the case, and this is what they want to do, it's a very, very shrewd move by WWE, because they're really getting the benefit and the kick of everything that they want, but they're not having to carry that consistent cost of having dozens of guys backstage hanging out and catering, twiddling their thumbs, not being utilized. And it's also giving those guys an opportunity to go out in the market, like what Drew did, reinvent himself through the indies again, become a big deal, and potentially come back in to potentially one day become a champion. So I think it's a really shrewd move by WWE. And I think it's a move that will benefit as well those workers in there as well, because if you're really made of that kind of metal and you really, really want it, you'll do what the likes of Drew did or a number of other wrestlers have done, and you'll get yourself back to the top of the mountain where you want to be.
It's a modern version of an old way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because what people, there's a lot of wrestling experts now out there that have studied the history of wrestling. And a lot of the young guys and gals out there, fair play to them. I see them doing their YouTube channel stuff, and they go back and they they read on the old territories and stuff like that. But it's one thing reading it, it's one thing having experienced it, which you did obviously growing up. I kind of came at the tail end of it. Unfortunately, I didn't get to choose when I was born, so I didn't have a choice in that matter. Yeah, exactly. You just yeah. So there's one benefit to being older, I suppose, is when your nostalgia is that little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I suppose just to give a little bit of I don't want to say history lesson, I don't want to kind of condescend people, but I suppose just a little quick one on what I mean by a modern version of an old way is kind of to put context on what you said there. Back in the day when it was the WWF, obviously with Vince Senior, and guys would come in and out of the territory. They'd be there for a minute, maybe a 6 week run or something. They might hold a belt within that 6 week run and then put over the guy that was going to be there long term. Do you know what I mean? So like, you would have just for example, you'd have Greg Valentine or someone come in, wrestle Patterson or something. I'm just making this up as I go along. Maybe win the belt. In the process, you're building up Patterson or the guy that WWE see long-term vision in, WWF see long-term vision in, and then he'd eventually drop the belt, and then he'd fuck off right into the sunset and go down south. You know what I mean? That's kind of the way it was, and I suppose that's what I mean by a modern version of the old ways. And I think if so, that's genius, because it was only really WCW and the Monday Night Wars that kind of made everything kind of have exclusivity. You know what I mean? You were playing for this team or that team, and that was it. Whereas if this is going to be the case, we've already seen it with Mickie James now. She's going to be in the Women's Rumble. So she's getting her company in the process, NWA, are getting the rub because they're just getting someone that's come off Royal Rumble pay-per-view television.
Yeah.
And well, we will get on to some of the rumors of the men's ones as well. I think this benefits everyone, both AEW, it doesn't benefit MLW. They're going to court, but that's a podcast for a different day. They're taking WWE to court at the moment, but not like, I'll say one thing about MLW. ask a lot of their stars. They're probably one of the worst companies to work with as well. So I don't know how that's going to go. But the likes of the NWA now, Billy Corgan, that's going to benefit him a lot. It's going to benefit Impact, and AEW. I mean, AEW and WWE, if this is a move that benefits them all, it's very, very shrewd, like you say. And I think it makes a lot of sense. I do still feel WWE are eventually going to sell. I think that's 100%. I think they're getting rid of what they consider, I don't want to use the word dead weight, because that's quite disrespectful to a lot of the guys and the girls that have been there, because a lot of them haven't been dead weight. Fixed cost. Exactly. I think that's a better way of looking at it. And I think, this, because even if they do kind of sell, it shows that there can be business done with both companies, and it keeps everything fresh. It brings in new modern viewers. It brings back a lot of the old viewers as well, because you don't know what's going to happen week to week. You know, is CM Punk going to show up at WrestleMania demanding this WrestleMania match? I mean, I'm obviously
yeah,
you know, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but to touch on your original point, it's actually I think it's really shrewd. And I think now with AEW, with Impact, obviously getting the rub off AEW as well, with the work that Billy Corgan has put into Impact, and with a lot of the great independent companies around Europe and the world, there's so many places for these guys and girls to work, like you mentioned with Drew, that they can rebuild their career, repackage themselves, if you will, and you know, and come back stronger to either of the companies. So it's exciting times ahead for pro wrestling, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you look at the nucleus of WWE, the nucleus of WWE is the belt is going to travel around a pretty small circle.
Sure.
Because there's only a small circle, although they carry, you know, an abundance of talent, or lately they've been trimming it down, but they still carry an abundance of talent.
Yeah.
But in reality, in that abundance of talent, there's really only maybe 5 guys, girls, maybe on each show that realistically can carry the strap and carry the company potentially.
Sure. So I agree.
What happens is, so this is a very shrewd business move in terms of, if Vince, you know, can get Tony Khan, like I imagine that this is like nearly a mafia thing, you know, like New York in the old days. Remember the old mafia in New York? So they're all sitting around the table, and of course, no matter what anyone says, Vince sits at the top of the table. That is without question.
Well, he's the old man. He's the old man.
Yeah, but you can imagine him as that Marlon Brando figure. And then you have, like, you know, you'd have Tony Khan there, Billy Corbin, whoever it is, whatever organizations, whoever's Ring of Honor, all these guys just there around this table, and we're going, listen, guys, we're going to come together, right, with this plan, and we're going to fucking light up wrestling again and make it fucking cool for everyone. So I'm thinking sort of like, you get the Royal Rumble, so you might have Mickey James. Who's to say we don't get Nick Aldis in there as well? Absolutely phenomenal talent, absolutely brilliant guy. So he could go in there as well. Obviously, the husband of Mickey James as well. But what happens if Jericho shows up on the stage, or Cody shows up on the stage? The roof on that building will need to have heavy insurance, because it will be gone. It will be gone. And then I'm thinking, what happens if we go to a big AEW event like a Double or Nothing or All Out or whatever it is, and the next thing they're giving shit to Roman Reigns? Punk's in the ring giving shit to Roman Reigns, and the next thing the music hits and Roman Reigns is at the top of the stage. We will lose our shit. Wrestling will be back, and everything that we hated in wrestling will be gone.
Now, this is fantasy booking, of course, and but this is the possibilities of what we're saying. This is the kind of narrative that we're running. We're not going to break in exclusives here, and we're kind of having a conversation on where the possibilities.
If you think about it from a business, point of view, you're not going to carry all that. You're not going to carry all that fixed cost. Your revenues are going to go through the absolute fucking skyrocket. Your TV ratings are going to go through the skyrocket. So your revenues are going to go through the roof in terms of your merch, in terms of your pay-per-views, in terms of your TV and your viewership and stuff like that. But your fixed cost isn't there anymore. Exactly. So instead of paying these people,
they're not on
weekly,
the books. Yeah,
you're paying these guys for the job, and that's their job for that night or that week, or whatever it is.
It's
like a Nixer, like a Nixer. And they have their little base maybe out on the indie scene, whatever they're doing, or at AEW or at WWE. And then outside of that, once a month on a pay-per-view, or once every 3 months on a pay-per-view, they come together and go, right, we're going to skyrocket MJF, or we're going to skyrocket this guy or that, and boom, they do it. You know? Right. So and the thing about it is as well, the amount of referencing to WWE at the moment on the AEW show, the little nitpicky promo stuff and stuff like
CM
that.
Punk and the CM Punk MJF thing. You know what I mean?
There has to be something there.
Yeah,
there has to be.
Yeah, I noticed that. I noticed that way, and I thought.
So our thinking may not be too fantasy.
No, not at all. I'm saying that purely to cover my own ass, so that fans come back to me and go, "You told me on this that this was going to happen," and then Niall can run
back as a good thing.
Niall can run off to the upper tier and leave me to take all the heat, and I'll be like, "Well, you know what? No, but to be fair, I'll joke. I'll be
always in the comments.
Of course you will. No, I do agree. I think even with that promo that Punk hit MJF with was absolutely fantastic as well. You know, go over, get in a buy one get one free for over 2 night show, whatever. I'm paraphrasing.
Marry the boss's daughter on main event WrestleMania or whatever it was. Like, or whatever. Like, he just, like, you know what I mean? The cut is real razor sharp, and it's really, really good. You know what I mean?
I was just going to say, is there a better promo in the wrestling business than Punk when he's on his game at delivering that sharp, articulate dig? That, because you know, it's going to be his thing because he was bitter about WWE and stuff like that. So, but at least he's using it in a kind of a fun way, right? Because he's not coming across as like, you know, the bitter old man that's just sitting at home feeling sorry for himself. He's fucking, he's delivering them like, Jesus Christ. I don't know if there's a better promo from a guy, you know, in wrestling at the moment, because he's so different, isn't he, to everyone else?
Do you know what's different about him? His use of vocabulary is absolutely brilliant.
Very intelligent, very articulate. Yeah.
He can drop a promo like that, and still MJF gets a bump from it.
Oh yeah.
So he's not devaluing the talent in any way, and it's a very unique skill in wrestling where, you know, the baby face, the guy who's over, can cut the kind of nearly heelish promo and bring you along that path with him where you both get a super bump out of it.
Well, the last
and I think he's one of the few that still has that.
He's a really is a throwback to Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin circa 1997, isn't he? Like Bret had that ability, obviously, and obviously, you know, Punk is the biggest Bret mark, which is not a bad thing. And that, when you look at those promos that Bret and the Hart Foundation used to cut on DX and Stone Cold at the time, it's very, very similar to that. You know, like he's the baby.
And it elevates everyone.
Everyone, because you're if you're on the opposite side of the fence, you want to see him get his ass kicked. But then if you're on his side, you want to see this little fucker get his ass kicked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, even last night, looking at their the match that he had with Wardlow, like you know, that little roll up, it was the Bret and Diesel finish, put him up with a powerbomb, boom, small package, 1, 2, 3, get out of there. Brilliant, just fantastic. And student
of it.
Student of the game, 100%. And I think he is. He's slowly building himself back up, isn't he, to becoming the best in the world again. You know, the gimmick, like he's having the matches, not just there to go to promo, working with the younger guys. They're getting that experience. I think it's absolutely fantastic. But let's talk, before we move on, let's talk about the word on the street that one Chris Jericho may be appearing in the Royal Rumble, and it's a very valuable word too. It's because it's coming across multiple platforms now. We could be nonsense, I don't know, but if this is the case, a lot of people have said, does he come out to Judas or does he come out to the old Y2J music? Now, this is where we may or may not disagree. I personally think it would benefit both companies if he did come out to his own Judas music, you know what I mean, his own gimmick, rather than putting him in a pair of the old Lion Tamer tights with the long hair and all again. As great as that would be to see, I think it would be really cool if it looks like, because that could be the start of like an old NWO type thing, where one guy is coming in as himself from the other company and people go, what the fuck is this all about? Where's this going? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking, first of all, he can come out to whatever he wants. He comes out to whatever he wants.
He's Chris Jericho.
But the reality is, I mean, I'm old school, so I wouldn't care if he came out in a pair of jeans and a cut off AEW t-shirt, you know, that kind of way.
But you know what? But that's the thing, because Jericho, like the thing about WWE, and they have to realize this, Jericho does what he wants to do on that show anyway. So everything, every gimmick there has not been packaged by Eric Bischoff, say, for example. It's not been reinvented by Eric Bischoff. It's not like Hollywood Hogan. But even Hollywood Hogan was his own. Do you know what I mean? So WWE don't need to worry about, oh, well, they created that. No, this guy created that. So let him come in. And
WWE just made tons of money off it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's interesting if Jericho is one of the guys that comes out, and I have a feeling this year we're going to see quite a lot of surprises in the Rumble entrance. Personally,
I I wonder down the road, are we going to get an invasion style situation, but booked and managed properly?
yeah. Do you think Vince kind of looks back on that in the older, the lighter years of his life now? You know, looks back at that invasion
Mm.
thing and really goes, "Yeah, we did fuck that up." You know,
Yeah, well, from his point of view, he left about 3 billion worth of dollars out of his net wealth. So, and
hundred
we know he's a
percent,
money guy. We
hundred
know he's a
percent.
money guy. So they made an absolute bags of it, there's no doubt about it. But I'm kind of thinking, if you think about the Rumble, right? Let's suppose we get a couple of guys. Let's suppose we get maybe four, maybe five AEW guys. And they come in like that ECW flavor and are working together in the Rumble kind of thing. And it's us versus them kind of thing till we get to. Now, obviously, I wouldn't be as crazy enough to think, what happens if an AEW guy won the Royal Rumble?
All right. Well, I think you might be
You
crazy
know,
enough
I
to
mean,
think
now
that. We
that
need to get
that could
Finn
be a
Martin
step
on
too
here
far.
for you,
But
Noel.
but what happens if Jericho was to enter the Rumble, and what happens if Jericho was to win it? I mean, it's not inconceivable that Jericho could win the Royal Rumble, because when you think about it, if you look at the talent that's out there at the moment, Brock's involved with Bobby, they're having a match, and Seth is involved with Reigns. So they're having a match. They're the two title matches, I think, that are scheduled for the Rumble, I think, at this stage. So that's a fair bit of talent that's taken out of the Rumble scenario, in theory.
Yeah.
Unless one of those boys drops a belt and surprise jumps into the Rumble to try and get the title match or something like that. But it's not inconceivable that, like, if these guys are working together and this is their plan going forward, how to do it, that one of those guys could win the Royal Rumble and go on to WrestleMania. Imagine it was Punk. Imagine if Punk entered the Rumble and won the Rumble. And imagine if Punk was number one and went bell to bell and won the Rumble and got his Mania match.
You're getting excited now, and I'm sure you're getting a lot of listeners excited too. They're probably going, "Yes, I've heard it on Dynamos dozen first."
We've said it before on the Four Podmen. We're available for booking duties if anyone needs us. As crazy at times as we are, but this is what would get you excited. This is what, like, imagine waking up the morning after Rumble and being a wrestling fan and to have not watched it and finding out that CM Punk showed up, went in as number one, and went bell to bell and won the Rumble. Because remember, if you look at a lot of the animosity that's been there in the past, a lot of that animosity has been there between himself and Triple H.
Yeah.
But over those years, Triple H has softened. But we also know at the moment that Triple H is kind of slightly out of the picture at the moment. Yeah. And a lot of what was laid down there in the last 3 to 5 years of what he had put in place is kind of being broken up and taken down and moved.
Yeah, there's a lot of rumor and innuendo, and we have to say that. A lot of rumor and innuendo that him and Steph have had a couple of things as well. And this could be kind of some of the reasons as to why, H is getting treated the way he's getting treated now. Again, I don't deal with rumor and innuendo. That's private business. Nothing to do with me. Yeah. But
I'm chalking it simply down to health. Simply down.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. But even at health, like, the poor guy goes and he has a heart attack. Well, not a heart attack, but he had problems, but it was serious.
Yeah.
And they fuck him over and get rid of his whole legacy and get rid of all of his boys. And it's kind of a bit crazy. But look, we'll leave that one there.
It's like you're at a Motorhead concert. You take them well, they bring you away to make you well. You come back and you find out what you thought was a Motorhead concert is Hannah Montana.
Yeah, that's
and you go, what happened here?
That's actually perfect. That is absolutely perfect. You're like, you come back to the concert and you're like, what?
Yeah.
What
Hang on a minute. Where did I read that the supporting act was Miley Cyrus?
Yeah.
Motorhead.
Do you know what I mean? I wanted Lemmy and you gave me Miley. What's the deal? Yeah. Now it depends on what Miley's doing for you. It's a different story. But right, so a couple of other bits of news, bits and pieces that I wanted to bring up before we wrap it up. The latest Ric Flair show, for anyone that hasn't seen it, check it out. Ric Flair Uncensored. I think obviously his son-in-law Conrad is kind of behind it all, funding it. Shout out to Conrad Thompson.
Awesome.
Yeah, legend. Conrad's a great guy. You know, he's the kind of guy that's never forgotten where he's come from. And I'll say that, like, even before the new year, like, we kind of sent a text to each other, and he's just like wishing me luck, and you know, just told him he's doing an awesome job, and he's that guy, kind of guy that will still always have time for you. You know what I mean? So, don't worry, Conrad. I'm not trying to get you on the show again. Yeah, I know you're literally probably have no minutes in the day to do anything.
He's a man who sees every single sentence as an opportunity.
Oh, absolutely.
Great. And it's amazing. If you're around a guy like that, it's amazing to be around it.
Absolutely. Fantastic. So the obviously Mark Madden throwback, he's the one hosting the show. I like Mark Madden. He does have a tendency to talk over guests and stuff like that as well, which is I think it's more so it's two old men kind of speaking over each other. But Mark Madden's a sportscaster as well. Like, and sometimes you're going, Madden, shut the fuck up and let him speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Madden's always been that kind of way. That's his thing. You know what I mean? He's controversial.
That chemistry will come.
Oh yeah, but they like each other a lot, and I do.
Yeah.
I like Mark Madden. I think he's a great host, and I think he's a great sportscaster as well. I mean, he's worked for ESPN. He's worked for everybody. You know, he knows the stuff. He's worked obviously with WCW and TNA too. So, he definitely knows the stuff. But Ric Flair, we know there's been a lot of controversy recently. His opinion on Nick Khan is very, very low. He's almost the new Jim Herd for Ric Flair. He obviously had this battle with our own Becky Lynch over the man thing, and it looks like WWE have kind of ceased and desist now, and they've taken the man out of the equation. And it's big time Bex, obviously, because Flair basically was saying, well, look, that is my thing. You know, I was to be the man. That was always my thing. And he goes, and I made that for my children as well. He goes, I worked my bollocks off to leave that for my kids. And, you know, I probably lost out on $30 million that WWE have made off it. So we can see both points. You know what I mean? I'm not here to.
It's hard.
It's not Becky's fault either, by the way.
No, I see both points, but it's weird when you look at some of the documentaries and you look at some of the interviews and stuff like that, and you talk about how this guy was down and out. He was about to lose his house. He was going through a heavy divorce and all these kind of things. Everything that's been thrown at him and challenged him over the years. And the one thing that's been kind of consistent is Vince McMahon has always been there with the checkbook to fix it. Now, I'm not saying that Ric Flair didn't make heaps and heaps of cash for WWE, but it seems that when he's at his lowest point, or when he's really needed someone to give him a dig out when he was, you know, in a bad place, it seems to be WWE has been that place, Triple H, Vince McMahon, to, you know, bring him back, fix him up, rebuild the Nature Boy, you know, who was like, you know, we've seen so many documentaries.
Well, he's admitted it. Yeah, he's admitted it.
Yeah, and he's admitted himself and stuff like that. So it's amazing how these things suddenly become so toxic. You know what I mean? And I suppose it's a weird one, you know. So when I hear that, when I hear those stories, I kind of think, hang on a minute, you were about to lose your house, you were about to be put out on the street, you went to McMahon, you asked him to write a check for, I think at the time, if I remember right, it was 600,000 or 800,000 or something like that. Vince just wrote the check and said, don't worry about it, we'll sort it. You know what I mean? And I'm kind of thinking, you know, sometimes I can see the money that's involved and stuff like that, and the back and forth and stuff like that, which I thought was just kind of internet working and stuff like that, to be honest. But clearly,
I did initially.
There was a bit of bite to it.
Yeah.
I can understand sometimes if you're being trod on a little bit and you feel that you're being unjustly taken advantage of when you're not there and earning as part of it. But also you have to look at what's gone on in the past and say, you know, do I really need to throw this kind of muck at him, or is this something that can be sorted out, you know?
Well, I think to take it out on Becky was kind of wrong too. I mean, we know that, like, you know, she's doing what she's told to do as well. You know what I mean? The man kind of thing would probably just an idea and a little bit of tongue in cheek and fun, and not necessarily meant as a, you know, it goes back to the day when, do you remember when Larry Zbyszko was trying to sue Jericho for calling himself the living legend.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day. And it was kind of like a lot of this stuff is tongue in cheek and stuff that you call yourself. And I think a lot of these old timers, and I understand it, like you said, I understand it, but I think a lot of these old timers thinks there's a little bit of paranoia in there sometimes, maybe, where they think it's a direct shot at them from the company rather than just being something that was kind of.
Look, the way I look at it, look, when Becky was doing it and she was at the height of the man stuff, he was standing ringside with Charlotte and he was earning off it, so it suited him. Yeah. So when he's not standing ringside and he's not earning off it, then it doesn't suit him. So it's kind of a.
Well, the only thing apparently that was one of the reasons he did want to leave, though, was because of this. You know what I mean? Because obviously he was looking for, you know, this is one of the reasons as to why he asked for his release. So, look. You're going to get people on either side of the fence on this one. I'm not really choosing a side on it. I love Vince. I love Rick. I love Becky. You know, personally. So.
I just don't think in any situation. If it's me personally, I don't think in any situation. If a guy in the past has bailed me out and paid off my mortgage when I was about to be put out on the street, and my divorce, my marriage was collapsing, my world was collapsing. And you know, even when he was sick in hospital and he was on death's door, I'm sure the two guys that were heavily involved in that were Triple H and Vince McMahon, without a shadow of a doubt. And I just think if those guys have batted for you that much, I think to get that, and I won't call it petty, but I call it kind of like self-serving or something like that. I think there's a better way of figuring that out. You know what I mean? And I think she's been pushing that whole man thing now for how long? 3-4 years, is it probably at this stage? You know, and now you're getting upset about it. Come on.
Yeah, and I mean, and kind of bringing the belts and all in, like that H actually bought, and kind of making it kind of, well, they're my belts. I just want to buy them back. It's kind of like, what need does Triple H have for, you know, the original NWA belt? I could just buy it off you. It's kind of like there's obviously something there that's kind of rattled him, and Rick is a hot-blooded fucking guy, you know what I mean? And he's a very, very heart on the sleeve kind of guy, and I can understand that because I'm similar. You know, I have a similar personality to that, so I can see, you know, why he may feel a little bit upset and aggrieved. And look, we don't know the whole story either, so there are two sides to the coin. But one of the statements on the recent show, which I thought was fantastic, was he took exception on Twitter to Jericho being called the GOAT. You've probably seen this. Now, his response to that was, I'm not saying that like that I have a problem with it because I want financial gain from it. This is what he was saying. But this is the unique thing. It's the first time Ric Flair's ever said this. He turned around and the first person he mentioned was, if you're going to call yourself the GOAT or someone's going to call himself the GOAT, Bret Hart, which I was like, as soon as he said Bret Hart, I was like, wow. He said Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and Ricky Steamboat. And I'm probably paraphrasing here, but I'm very, very close to it. He said those three guys are technically the best professional wrestlers of all time. He goes, including me. He goes, I can't touch any three of them. He goes, I brought the show. I brought the bells and the whistles. And yes, I could work. I was a good wrestler. He goes, but technically those three guys are better than anyone, including me. He goes, so you cannot throw that word GOAT at someone like Chris Jericho. And then he made the point that the fundamentals of pro wrestling, which I 100% agree with, are kicking and punching. And then he said, neither of which Jericho's very good at. He goes, he's great at the other stuff in between, blah, blah, blah. So he wasn't attacking Jericho as such. He was giving his opinion on what he thinks the GOATs are, which, listen, there's nobody on the planet that's more qualified than Ric Flair to have that opinion. I don't care what anyone says. I think you and me would be in agreement with that.
Yeah.
And he did say, because Mark Madden kept saying, well, look, I think Jericho's fantastic. Jericho is definitely one of the modern guys who has completely reinvented himself every time. And he kept saying, he goes, this is not not attacking Jericho. He goes, I love the guy. He goes, but I'm just being honest as to what, you know, I consider the GOATs. And he goes, and I think those guys are the GOATs. So interesting, right?
But the problem with discussing the GOAT and pro wrestling is what's the parameters of which you're discussing it. You know what I mean? Like for me, there's no such thing as a GOAT in pro wrestling. There's multiple,
Well, he's talking, I
multiple
suppose,
GOATs.
if you're Ric
You know
Flair,
what I
I'm
mean?
just trying to, I'm only thinking in my head of how I know the guy that has come across on television and what he's been around. He's been around long enough to know what makes a great professional wrestler. Like, go back and listen to, here's a shameless plug. Like, go back and listen to my interview with the original one I done with Harley Race, and he talks a lot about it as well, and what he considers, status that makes you a great professional wrestler, bell to bell in the ring. And I think that's where probably Flair's coming from in what he considers, because he's been around all generations of it now at this stage, the new generation, and been in the ring with a lot of them too. So I do agree with you. It is very, very circumstantial. It's also opinionated as to what, you could have someone out there that thinks Kurt Angle is the greatest wrestler of all time, and you wouldn't be wrong. But then it's the measure. Absolutely. But then Kurt Angle, that kind of lends itself to Flair's opinion on what makes a great pro wrestler, right? Because when you look at Kurt Angle, he has shades of Steamboat, Bret, and Michaels. So I think that's what he's trying to say, that those three guys, when you look at them fundamentally, there's nobody better. And maybe that's what he's getting at, I suppose.
Again, it depends on what you're looking at. I mean, where I come from, this is back in the 4 Podman days, we did an episode on the Mount Rushmore.
Sure.
And we know exactly how difficult it was to pick 4 or 5 guys to be the greatest of all time, and who we left out and who we put in and all this kind of thing. Even the difficulty of doing it, even when we were doing tag teams, it was really, really difficult. So I think it's very difficult, and sometimes it's a moment in time. Sometimes it's a moment, where wrestling is at the moment, and you look at it and stuff and you go, what do you think? Is it this? Is it that? Or stuff like that. The one thing I would say about Chris Jericho, I'd say he is certainly, what I do is, there's no real GOAT. If you ask me who the GOAT of pro wrestling is, I couldn't give you a name. I could give you 10 names. So what I would say is, he's certainly in the conversation. And that conversation is quite broad. Because if you look at Chris Jericho and you look at his body of work from start to finish, and how many times he's reinvented himself, and what he had to do to climb to the top of the mountain and to get to where he got, and how hard and how he had to fight to get to where he got to.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't come into the wrestling business, like The Rock. He didn't come in, and and I know The Rock had to work his way up, and we'd Rocky Maivia and then The Rock and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But, and Austin did his stuff as well and worked up to become Austin 316.
Everyone has, to be fair.
So they all have a body of work.
Yeah.
But if you look at Chris Jericho over the time frame of his career and the amount of times he's had to reinvent himself. Now, when I say reinvent himself, I don't mean dye your hair, or I don't mean something like that. I mean really reinvent yourself. And I also look at the body of work that Chris Jericho has put together in terms of creating superstars on the way, and it being a proper dance between the two.
Yeah.
I think he is certainly in the conversation. There's no doubt about it. But I think the GOAT of wrestling can only be a conversational piece. I don't think I could sit here and tell you I think it's Shawn Michaels or The Undertaker, and you could sit there saying, no, it's Bret Hart or Stone Cold, and someone else might think it's Jericho, and someone else might think
it's not a fact-based conversation.
Yeah.
And I suppose why I'm sticking up for Flair here a little bit is that that's his opinion, and he gave that opinion. He wasn't, like I say, I don't think there's anyone more qualified, especially not more than any kind of smart mark rider or anything, or me, or you,
or me,
and Ric Flair to have that opinion. So he's been in the ring with all 3 of them. So he's kind of, and everyone else, including Jericho. So I don't think that's really the stick to beat him with, because that's his opinion, and he's given it as fact. But
the point that I'm making as well is, he was asked about the GOAT. He couldn't give you one single name.
No,
he had to say Sean or Brett, or
let me give you an example. You're a football man.
It's a conversation.
Yeah, well, you're a football man, right? It's the same thing with footballers. Who is the actual GOAT?
Well, for years it's been the Pele, Maradona. For years it's been the Messi, Ronaldo.
Yeah.
For years it's been whoever, you know what I mean? So it's like we have a lot of fun on the show when we do combined 11s and our our top shows that we do and stuff like that. So it's a fun exercise and stuff like that.
Of course, but there's no fact. Like, you could turn around and say Ian Rush is the GOAT for me of all time because he done for my club what nobody else has done. I'm just using this as an example. You could say, a Man United fan could turn around and say, well, in my opinion, the greatest of all time is Ruud van Nistelrooy. Just look at his goals. An Arsenal fan can say, well, look, I could turn around and say, I could turn around and say, well, in my opinion, the greatest Premier League footballer of all time is Eden Hazard. I don't have that opinion, but I definitely think he's the best over the last 10 years. You could turn around to me and say, but Salah's matching that. So it's all... There's
always a counter discussion and conversation. My conversation there and what he said is some people would turn around and say it's Hulk Hogan, and then the counter argument to that would be, well, I don't know about that. Did he do business the right way? Was he all in it for himself? Blah 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 blah. But then you could turn around and go, well, if there was no Hulk Hogan, would there have been a Bret Hart? Would there have been a Stone Cold? Would there have been a Rock? Would there have been a wrestling business that became this huge globalized brand and product that goes out there now?
And the answer to that
so there's always a conversation.
But the answer to that is no. And I'll tell you why, and this is going to upset a lot of people, but like what you said is 100% true. If someone turned around and said, yeah, Hulk Hogan is the greatest of all time, you're going, right, in terms of star, yes. You know what I mean? If we're talking about the whole package and whole star, you're going, okay, yeah. I'm not saying that he is the greatest of all time, but what I'm saying is they would have an argument. They would have a case to bring forth because there wouldn't be any of that without Hulk Hogan. And yes, of course, you're always going to get that. Oh, well, somebody else would have come along. It could have been such and such. It could have.
Oh yeah, would there been any Hulk Hogan if there wasn't Lou Tez or whoever it was? Or Bruno or Sheik or whoever.
But in terms of bringing it to that global status, like who else would Vince have picked to hand the ball to that could have run with it the way Hogan did? And that's an answer that nobody can that's a question that nobody can answer because nobody else did it and he did it. So I see your point.
I just saying that I see the GOAT topic as being more of a conversational piece on any given day and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I don't think it's anything to do with I don't think you can definitively turn around and go, that guy is the GOAT. I don't think you can, because the parameters of being the GOAT in this business that we love, pro wrestling, is so diverse in terms of John Cena, perfect example.
Yeah.
If you're running a wrestling business or you're the owner of a wrestling promotion, John Cena is the man that you want because rarely gets injured, shows up every week, does the job, whatever it is, sells warehouse loads of merchandise. The kids love him, Make-A-Wish guy, all that kind of stuff. He is the model employee.
Yep.
And you see, and then so is John Cena the GOAT?
No.
But if you're an old school, but if you're an NWA territory guy, or if you're a Jim Crockett guy, or if you're an 80s guy, John Cena probably wouldn't get into the conversation. You know what I mean? So it's always, again, it's who you're talking to. It's a moment in time. Are you having a good day or a bad day at that moment when you're talking about it? 100%. It's all hyper.
100%. I mean, and that's a great point that you made, like, because you can look at someone like, John Cena, and you could go, right, he came from the Bret Hart school of thought. You know what I mean? He was there. Now, obviously, he sold more merch and all than Bret. You know what I mean? But obviously, someone like Bret is someone who, Cena looked at, never injured, never takes a day off, works all the house shows, fucking appeals to his fans, and his fans mean more to him than the next guy. You know what I mean? And that's 100% true. I think Bret even said that before he goes, Cena reminds me a lot of myself in that sense. You know what I mean? Never took days off. I mean, it's all well and good saying Naomi, Feel the Glow has been there now, 10 plus years and blah, blah, blah. But like, has Naomi been like having fucking 5-star matches with like Skinner and fucking guys, you know, in arenas where there's no cameras, and no disrespect to Naomi, I'm only using her as an example. I'm literally just using it as an example. Cena was the same, literally in every single fucking, you know, and at the same time trying to improve his actual ability as well. So he didn't just go out and do the moves and do the. So for me, Cena's more of a wrestling guy than Hogan, because Hogan wasn't at all these house shows. You know what I mean? He was there.
But the problem with that is, it's like your analogy with football. You can't compare Pele and Maradona to Ronaldo and Messi, because it's literally a different game. But it's literally a different game at this stage. Like if you think of 80s wrestling into 90s wrestling into the noughties into now and stuff like that, it's like a different sport.
Oh,
you know what I mean? It's like a different form of entertainment. So again, it's very hard to make. There's no real. You nearly have to jot down somewhere in the region of maybe 10, 12, 13 factors. And you'd have to rate them in a scoring of 1 to 10 on all those factors, and then come out with a full score at the end and go, right, this guy pipped this guy because of this and stuff like that. You know, it's
you know
the
what?
only
No,
way
you've
you
just write that down. You've just
create a show.
Yeah, I think so. I think we can do a 4-pod on that. Quick shout out. Anyone that misses the 4-pod, it will still be on this channel. We'll do it once a month. We'll get 4 guys in, and we'll have these type of conversations. So that could be, keep that one note it down, because that's a really, really good thing. I think if you had 10 different factors and we put down together and we scored them honestly out of 10, and you pick the 10 guys that you assume they get a score at the end, and then you have to go with that. I think another one before we go, there's another thing I wanted to bring up with you. Our old mutual friends, Jim Cornette, Uncle Jim, and Kenny Omega have been at it again. Now this was kind of for different reasons. I think Jim was actually innocent on this one, and he was brought into it.
He's always innocent.
Of course he is. He's always innocent. There's been a lot of not controversy, I suppose. There's been a lot of talk and a lot of debate amongst the Twitterverse, which is, there's a surprise, right? On Twitter,
go figure.
On Twitter, there's one born every fucking minute. You know, for every smart guy, there's about 20 fucking idiots. But someone was brought up the old Rio videos. Rio, obviously, first AEW Women's Champion, where Kenny Omega was wrestling her when she was 9 and wrestling kids. And then there was a video of him wrestling a guy in like a thong. You know, this is the reason, you know, myself and a lot of old school guys still aren't the biggest Omega fans in the world. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I don't want to kill the guy. I fucking oust him from pro wrestling. Whereas Jim Cornette has a different opinion. Obviously, it is a little bit nonsense, you know, for me, as that's my opinion. I'm an old school guy. You're an old school guy. I don't appreciate any of that stuff that Omega done. However, I have, and you know this, I have given him a lot of passes on this and trying to enjoy him these days, you know. But it's been brought up on Twitter, out of his hands. It's just, unfortunately, when you have a body of work like that, it's always going to surface, you know. And somebody was kind of making claims about it, saying it's a bit weird how like Rio turned up, like, has he had his eye on her since he was 9 years old, and what's the stuff. So you have a lot of crazy people out there that are making insinuations and stuff like that, none of which we are going to do on this show, because that's, you know what I mean. I don't really see I see that as scouting. No, I mean, you can play a football match with
Twitterverse.
Yeah, that's for Twitterverse. I mean, yeah, he probably saw potential in the kid when she was 9 and thought, yeah, I'm gonna keep an eye on her, and one day she's gonna be big. You know what I mean? But Kenny kind of bit a little bit, which I was a little bit disappointed with, because I thought he should have just ignored it and let them do what they want to do, you know. But obviously he's at home, time on his hands, and he couldn't stand it anymore. And then he started accusing people who were, one guy in particular who had a picture of him in an Arsenal jersey holding his daughter. So I understand Kenny's hate for Arsenal. Fair play, Kenny. But I'm teasing. He kind of said, oh, well, because the guy was saying, do you not find it a bit weird? And he was going back and forth with a girl, goes, well, I find it weird that he's wrestling children and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And then Kenny comes in and goes, well, I find it weird that you're holding some sort of kid that you may or may not have abducted. I don't know. The people might like you in the slammer. And he goes, yeah. The guy comes back and said, well, that would be my daughter. And he goes, yeah, likely story. He goes, the guys are going to love you in the slammer. So obviously Kenny, like, that was a bit like, you could tell Kenny behind the scenes is going, fuck you, you know, and I understand that, because you don't want to be accused of fucking stupid shit like that. And then someone turns around and the same, I think it was another guy that turned around and said, okay, well, what about your friend Marty Skrull, the pedophile and the rapist? Now, again, this is Twitter. So Marty Skrull has been accused of certain things, none of which we're going to accuse him of on this particular show, but that was what was brought in. And this is the response that Kenny returned with, and he goes, well, why don't you tell Jim Cornette to pipe down when he's talking blah, blah, blah. Again, I'm paraphrasing, don't have the tweets. Brings Jim into it, and Jim goes back and so, listen up, twinkle toes, motherfucker. He goes, the only thing that hurts people's ears and eyes is when they look at you doing your ballet routine, attempting to be a professional wrestler. Go fuck yourself. I thought it was silly because then I think the next one then was Kenny Omega saying, well, look, obviously myself and many people are suffering from breeding at the moment. It was all about breeding, wasn't it? Myself and many sports people are suffering due to COVID effects. And Jim comes back and he goes, so I apologize. Jim Cornette goes, fuck your apology. He goes, I've never had COVID in my life. He goes, the only time I fucking ever have problems when I'm watching you try to wrestle. Go fuck yourself. This was kind of brought on by Kenny Omega himself, wasn't he? Because he didn't need to bring Jim Cornette into it. And also he didn't need to respond to debate from the Twitterverse. If I'm Tony Khan here, if you're, no, you run a business, if you're Tony Khan and he's, you know, he's one of your top guys, you know, one of your big merch sellers that you're trying to get over to the American public, and it's started to work, you're going to be a little bit disappointed in your employee there on that one, aren't you?
Yeah, I suppose there's a number of points to this. I've often gone to independent shows here in Ireland and gym shows and all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the show, I'd have Ben with me when he was a kid. And Ben, you know, when kids go to wrestling shows,
many of which I've been a part of, but I never offended your kid.
Absolutely. Yes. But at the end of those shows, we'd always hang back and talk to the guys because of the connection with the shop and stuff.
Yeah,
like
100%. Yeah.
So Ben would get into the ring and he'd run the ropes, and Phil and a few of the lads would show him a few moves and show him how to run the ropes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And at no point did it feel weird.
No.
Okay, so I'll just put that out there.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say as well is it's a very strange thing that Kenny would have went down that road in terms of Jim Cornette, because prior to Kenny going out, he was kind of winning Jim around.
I know.
In terms of his work and stuff like that. So Jim was starting to talk kind of like, if you think about the last 2 years of Jim Cornette and Kenny Omega, in the last 3, 4, 5 months, he's been putting on really, really good matches and stuff like that. And he's been winning Jim Cornette around. And Brian Lass, is it?
Yeah,
Brian Lass, as well. So he's been winning them around in terms of their opinion of him and stuff like that. And whether you like it or not, these boys have an opinion and are listened to, and they have a viewership and an audience that can also, what way would you put it? You know, change your thinking.
Well, an educated audience too, because I mean, Jim Cornette, regardless of whether people like him or hate him, the man is an absolute genius when it comes to pro wrestling. So he can bring viewers to AEW if he says so. That's the point I think you're trying to make, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm thinking what this is. This was a situation where Kenny opened up a little bit of a box here that he shouldn't have opened.
Yeah,
he should have just let that lie, because what happens is most wrestlers out there at some point in their career have a little tsunami wave, and it's offshore, just sitting there waiting for, you know, the earthquake to happen. Yeah. And then all of a sudden someone brings up something that happened
Yeah.
10 years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, when we were in a different world and the globe hadn't been turned upside down and shook.
100%.
And what happens is that wave then starts gathering. And you talk about Twitterverse. That's a tsunami. And then eventually it crashes in on the land. And then it all goes to shit.
Yeah.
And I think for these guys, yeah, some of them have some suspect stuff from back then that looks kind of weird and stuff like that. But, you know, to be overly judgmental, I don't think it's the way to go. And the worst thing you can do is bite back at these guys. It's like if anyone's into fishing, when you throw a trace out to catch a mackerel and you're reeling it in and you think you have a fish, and then it comes up out of the water and you find you've got 6 on the line. This is kind of what happens with this, and this, you know, it's like a snowball rolling.
Good analogy.
It's like a snowball rolling down a hill, you know, and it gathers pace and gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I just thought that the inclusion of Jim Cornette was so left field, because he had kind of nearly won him over. Jim has been speaking so favorably about AEW and stuff like that. He used to hammer it.
Yeah.
But now he's starting to see things that he actually likes. And I think what it is a lot of it might have been frustration from Kenny Omega in terms of that he's out of the business at the moment. And he's probably just frustrated at a time that he's out of the business because he had put in such a body of work
100%
prior to going out.
Yeah,
and I'd say a lot of it is just down to that. But again, I wouldn't be the kind of person that's very quick in terms of a judgmental point of view. And I often look at things and say, okay, you know, like Dark Side of the Ring for us on the Podmen is a perfect example. Some of these things are a moment in time, and not necessarily a consistent situation. And, you know, some things have been apologized for, some things look weird now that didn't look weird then, things that happened and stuff like that. And I just think, I think maybe as a society, maybe we're a little bit judgmental, just a little bit too quick. But I think I think the situation with Jim Cornette I thought was very weird because I thought Kenny actually had him running with him a little bit prior to going out. And I think for the injury or the operation or whatever he had to have done it.
Yeah, I think that's my only gripe about it, because I mean I wouldn't be thrown, and the only reason I brought in the Marty Skrull stuff and all is because I'm giving context as to what actually happened with the situation. And obviously he brought Jim Cornette into it because I assume a lot of these guys that were indie guys assume that anyone that criticized them are Jim Cornette people. And I think that's where Kenny was wrong, because it could be someone that just has an opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think the mistake he did, I think you're 100% correct. I think the mistake he did make was bringing Jim Cornette into it. And I think that's why he apologized straight away, because he probably looked at Jim Cornette was like, listen, why the fuck are you bringing me into it? I had nothing to do with this. You know what I mean?
Or someone from the office got onto him and said, what are you doing? We actually have this guy running with us now. He has a huge audience. He's very influential in the wrestling business. People listen to what Jim Cornette has to say. So if you're gonna rub Jim Cornette the wrong way, it's gonna damage your product if you have a product out there and stuff like that. Of course. And so maybe someone got onto the office and says, you know, this guy is talking favorably about us. He thinks we're really, really good now. He's been your man for the last 3 to 4 months in terms of the product you're putting out. What the fuck are you having to go off this guy for? You know what I mean?
Well, that's
maybe
what I'm
was
thinking,
it, you know?
because we've heard Tony Khan say, well, look, I grew up loving Jim Cornette. And he goes, and to be honest with you, I do listen to his opinions. He goes, some I don't agree with, but a lot I do agree with. And I take it to better our show. So that's why I asked the question to you. You know, if you're Tony Khan, you're definitely kind of having a go off Omega on this one and going, come on, what are you doing? Like, there's no need to bring this guy into it. He doesn't have a pony in the race here on this one, to use a Jim Cornette analogy. So I thought it was a little bit of hopefully it's a lesson learned for Kenny. I mean, I don't think it's something, you know, I don't think it's a stick he needs to be beaten with, but I do think it's a lesson learned that don't respond to everything on Twitter. I mean, it's needless. Like, at the end of the day, if some lad is going to try and make little insinuations that he finds it weird that, you know, you were wrestling Rio and all the kids when they were kids, at the end of the day, we know in Japan, the young boys get in there with the wrestlers and always have, you know, so if some idiot wants to make an insinuation out of that, just ignore it. That's my personal opinion. And I understand it'd be very hard to ignore because you're defending your character. That's also the other flip side of the coin. Yeah. I understand that. You know, you're defending your honor, you're defending your, you know, your
Look, it's
character.
not the first time. It's not the first time someone has thought that looks weird, and it won't be the last time.
No.
The question is, and what I would say to people is, if you're ever offended like that, what I would say is, think first and then type. Don't type first and then think, because then it's too late.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just.
I've learned that lesson. I'll tell you one thing. I've learned that lesson over the last year or two. The amount of times I have something to write on Twitter, and I'll write it out, and I do it on purpose now. I write it out, and I look back on it before I hit it, and I go, nah, delete.
Yeah,
just
it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And as football fans, we know it well, because we're Banter FC. So 100%. We always, how many times have you wrote a WhatsApp message and you go, nah, someone scored in the 93rd minute, and you have to delete it. So it's one of those things. But the one thing I'd say about, being the owner of a wrestling promotion, I can imagine it's a battle every week. Every week you're in battle and stuff like that. And the one thing I would say is, the more people you have running with you and promoting you and speaking favorably about you and not drawing any negative attention to you, the more successful you have the chance of being. And I just think, yeah, you're right. I think Tony wouldn't have been impressed with that. And maybe it's a case someone got onto him and said, what are you doing? You're drawing more attention to this. The wave is going to come, and you're not going to be able to handle the wave. And we're going to have to leave you out there on your own, because we can't get involved in it because it's a bit sticky. So what are you going to do? You know what I mean? So yeah, I'd say it was just a moment. I'd say he's frustrated to be out, because I know he loves the business. And I'd say he was probably having a bad day, like what we spoke about when we're talking about the GOAT, whether you're having a good day or a bad day, or who you're thinking about, or what's the last kind of wrestling footage that you watched. I think that this is the case here. I think.
How many times have we had that situation where, like, I'll go on a rant about Triple H or Shawn Michaels because I'm having a bad day, and I'm like, no, they're not even in the conversation. But then I look at it in context and go, no, actually, they're phenomenal. You know what I mean? It's just it's all up here. And I think unfortunately, like I say, there's one born every minute on Twitter. Every lunatic that's out there now has a platform to put their opinion in place. You know what I mean? Whether that be a mad conspiracy theorist or someone who's just just wants to fucking stir the pot just for their own.
And we know the paranoia that comes with this business. You know, they're so easily triggered.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But look, if you're having a bad day, think. If you're having a good day, type. There's the golden rule.
And I think that's a great way to end the show, to be fair. Niall, it's been a pleasure. I think this has been a nice catch up, in fairness. It's been nice to talk about, the possibilities of the Royal Rumble, the possibilities of 2, 3, 4, wrestling companies working together. And I think the future is exciting if the powers that be allow it to be. And so once again, make sure that you go over to Niall's channel, The Upper Tier, on YouTube, and make sure that you like and subscribe. Check out all of his videos. He's thrown up some great throwback videos there from the last year that we've had. So for any of you soccer or football fans out there, this is definitely the channel for you. You'll be seeing my ugly mug on it many a times now that I'm recovered. I'll probably be part of the mashup quite often. And of course, make sure that you like and subscribe to Dynamos Dozen. This is your new channel, I'm happy to say. Please comment and let us know your thoughts on our thoughts. And please support the show. Of course, you can always email dynamosdozen@gmail.com also. If you ever want to be on the show, you have any suggestions or something like that, I am always very quick to get back to you. And so Niall, been a pleasure. Episode 1 of Dynamos Dozen on Dynamos Dozen YouTube.
Pleasure to be on the first one.
Yeah, 100%, man. It's a nice old throwback to 3 years ago, isn't it?
We've come a long way from recording audio back in the day, chatting to each other, so it's all good.
Absolutely. We can even see each other now. It used to be you wouldn't even see the person. You were just looking out at the back garden, talking on the We should honorary mention out there as well. On the Slab have their new channel. You should mention that also as well, and also Retrotainment. Ted has his new channel out there as well. So. Yeah, I was going to get to that there as well. Yeah, Retrotainment, of course, which is part of the Dynamo Podcast Network, run by our very own Ted Irving and Greg Flanagan. where they talk about everything that's nostalgia based. They look at movies and shows and stuff like that, and games, I think, even sometimes too. On the Slab horror show, which of course yours truly is part of. Myself, Carl King Woe, and of course Greg Flanagan as well, where we do a show every single Friday night at about 9-10 p.m. because Friday night was always horror night back in our day, as you well know, Niall. Channel 4, BBC, horror night was always Friday. So we do a show where we talk about horror movies and stuff like that. So there's On the Slab YouTube channel, Retrotainment YouTube channel, and of course Carl himself has his own metal podcast, which is called King Woe's Court, and that's been around as long as ourselves, where he talks to all people within Irish metal and stuff like that. So if you're into the rock music and Irish metal, or whatever it may be,
awesome interviews.
Awesome interviews. So we're all there. And shout out once again to every single person that has supported any of the shows that we mentioned over the last year. We really appreciate it, and you're the reason that we keep doing it, and the reason that we've actually decided to make the decision we did, and kind of go solo, if you want to call it that, and have these channels for you. So been a hell of a ride, and the ride is only beginning. Yeah. So Niall, once again, thank you very much, sir. And until next week, Dynamo's Dozen is over and out.